Have you ever thought about what it might be like to live your dream life? But then thought, well, that'll have to wait. There's no way I can do that right now. Or maybe you felt stuck, a lack of opportunity because of where you're living, or the nature of your job, or the current travel bans. What if there was a way to start moving towards living your dream life, right now? A way to build a successful and happy life regardless of where you are. I'm Jane Singer, and welcome to A Seat at the Table. This episode is part of our Launch to Legendary series, where we get to hear from entrepreneurs and innovators who have taken the ordinary and turned it into the extraordinary, who've built their businesses by seeing opportunities in inopportune circumstances, who've defined success in their own terms. Together we'll be able to learn from their experiences and be inspired by what they've achieved. Jane Nakata lives in Fukushima, Japan, a place you might recognize as ground zero for the 2011 earthquake, tsunami, and nuclear disaster. She managed to get past the devastation of seeing everything around her thrown into chaos and ruin, as well as having her own plans turned upside down. And she went on to build her best life. In this podcast episode, Jane talks about mistakes people make when trying to create their dream life, how you can create an amazing life even when you live in a small town, and also the power of community. Before we get started, whether you're launching a new brand or looking to grow your existing brand, then Spin Expo is a must-visit fair. It's the primary exhibition for yarns and knitwear. The fair is a rich resource featuring well-edited, high-quality collections, as well as cutting-edge technical innovation, not to mention outstanding trend information that cannot be found anywhere else. You can learn more at spinexpo.com. That's www.spinexpo.com. There's also a link in the show notes. And check out our website. You can find all of the previous episodes of A Seat at the Table, the show notes, news about our upcoming workshops, contests, and lots of other useful information. You can find it at seat.fm. That's www.seat.fm. FM because it's a podcast. Now let's sit down with Jane Nakata and find out how to start building our best lives. I'm so excited to have you on the podcast to get your point of view. I think you have so much to bring to the table.
Well, thank you for inviting me today.
I think that the pandemic has caused many people to rethink their lives, particularly since it's dragged on now. It's pushing 2 years, right? To reevaluate their goals and their priorities. And it's caused so many of us to hit the pause button, and more people are starting to think about, often for the first time, what would my ideal life be like? You have some interesting insights on what you consider to be the mistakes that people make when trying to create their dream life. In your opinion, where do you see people going wrong?
Yeah, so I've been working on this creating my dream life for quite some time now, at least a good 4 years. So the thing that I would have to say is that it's not going to be an instant solution. You're potentially not going to know exactly what your dream life looks like and how you're going to get it. And that's okay. So people who are like, oh, I don't know what it is, so I just won't try. There's also a lot of people like that. They're not really sure. They just know it's not this. It's not what I'm doing right now. It's not this place. But they have no idea where they're going or what they're going to do, right? And because they haven't got the perfect answer, they're scared to make a choice or any choice. And they end up doing nothing and just staying where they are. So that's one of the biggest mistakes I see, is people expecting to get it right on the first go, to get it right straight out of the box and to just know exactly what it is. But you won't know that until you try something. And another mistake I see is people putting it off. Oh, when I retire, I will start this perfect dream life. In 5 years, when I hit 50, or when, this magical time in the future, that they will suddenly know what it is they want to do, or that they will suddenly be able to do this. And that's probably not how it's going to work out either. So something that I recommend to people is to think about, well, in this dream life, what are you going to be doing all day? Are you going to be working? What does your dream work look like? Where are you? It doesn't have to be a place. What kind of scenery are you seeing in this dream life? Is it mountains? Is it sea? Is it a city? Is it a lake? who's there? Is your family there? Is your partner there? Is it somebody else? Or maybe it's just you. Like, what's happening in this dream, in this day in your dream life? It's not the best day of your life. It's just a day in your dream life. And then you can get some clues from that. So you might get some clues that, oh, I'm swimming in the sea. So this tells me that maybe I need more sea in my life, and or maybe I need more beach time. I'm not a swimmer in the sea. I hate swimming in the sea. This wouldn't be in my dream life, but
Right.
I know might be in somebody else's, right? My dream life is more like by a lake. You're running. So when I first started this, I could see myself running by a lake, and there were mountains. And I was actually quite horrified because where I live, there's no lakes, there's no mountains. This is not my reality at the moment. And that was hard to compare my current reality with this dream life because it seems so, so far away. But the first step is just to imagine what that might be like and find something that you can bring into your life, even if it's in a small way. Oh, I seem to be doing a lot of swimming in this dream life, as we just mentioned before. Maybe I need to go to the pool more. And then you can have more of your dream life today. You don't have to wait 5 years or 10 years or when you retire. And that would be step one. Okay, I need more water in my life, or I need to have more trips to the beach. And so you start doing these things, and then you notice, oh, okay, actually in this dream life, maybe I'm doing writing. I like writing. And where am I doing writing in my life now? No, I'm not. Okay, let's make some time for writing in my life now. So I really hope that people can find a way to bring this future wonderful dream life into today in even small ways. And this will give you some clues as to where you're going in the future.
Yeah. So what you're saying then is that you want to imagine or think about it in broader terms, right? Just like writing or swimming, as opposed to really drilling down on exactly what you would be doing in a day in your dream life.
Exactly. Take some actions. They don't have to be perfect. And imperfect action is one of my favorite, hashtags that I like to use in my life. Imperfect action. Just do something. And did I enjoy that? Was that how I thought it was going to be? Is spending a day fishing actually enjoyable, or is that fun for other people? Or not fun for me, but I think it's fun for me because I'm told, oh, you want to do that.
Right. So in other words, you want to experiment and say what
Yeah.
may have been put forward to you or what you, for whatever reason, believe is ideal or something that's enjoyable to do. You might actually, when you do it, find that it's not really for you. So rather than,
Exactly.
dreaming of something, right, that's been put forward in more of a stereotypical way of sort of the ideal life, you have to try it, get your hands in the clay.
Exactly. Get out there, give it an experiment. And, we often see the people who will sell all their stuff and move to Bali and turn their life upside down to get this dream life. I'm like, oh, whoa, 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 whoa. But just hold on a minute there. Let's just experiment. Maybe just go to Bali for a week and see if that's actually what you want. Because often they've not done that and they're just going for this amazing thing that they think is going to be great, but maybe not be when they get there. Or it's such a shock to the system that you just want to go home and go back to your normal, because as humans, we love normality, right? We seek that out, that generally. So this general transition is going to be much more successful than uprooting everything and throwing everything away and running off to the stream life, I feel. Mm.
That's so true. I was actually just talking with somebody about that the other day, about how come when you go on a vacation to a place and it's so nice, right? And you're staying in a lovely hotel and you're having so much fun, and yet you still want to go home and get back to your normal life. Like you were saying, there's a security in the familiar.
Yeah, exactly. And also, I feel that people often sort of look at, oh, if I move to, and we'll give the example of Bali again, if I move to Bali, it's going to be the perfect place for me. And that's all I'm going to need. And I would say, well, hang on a minute. You might think that you only need A and not B, or A or B, but maybe it's A and B.
Right.
Yeah. In this perfect dream life in your future. So for me, I live in Japan and I'm from New Zealand. And I found that, and people would say to me, oh, which do you prefer, New Zealand or Japan? I'm like, don't make me choose.
Right.
Really, I can't just live in, now that I've lived in Japan for quite a long time, I can't just live in Japan and I can't just live in New Zealand. I need both. And that's okay, actually. I can have both. And actually, I'm going to add in a C here because I really love Sweden. And I had the chance to live in Sweden for a year. And I was like, wow, this is like the best of New Zealand and sort of mixed in. But it's not New Zealand and there's history and all these things. But it's cold in winter, so maybe I don't want to be here in winter and it's dark, but I want sea, and the sea is Sweden. So yeah, maybe we can have A, B, and C. It doesn't just have to be this one thing that's going to fulfill us. Yeah. It's a lot of pressure for a place, right?
Well, exactly. I mean, it's a very out of the box and very flexible way of looking at things. I think that oftentimes we tend to look at things through the eyes of social media, where everything has been edited and filtered. And so we look at a place, like you said, of all the things you love about it, but you don't realize that there's other things that are also part of being there.
We're going to take a quick break now, and then we'll be right back.
We were hiring when we were making 50 to 100K monthly losses.
And why? Welcome to episode 1.
I can't think of a single founder who's been around for a decent amount of time in business who hasn't had their tunnel of year. This was that year. We're going to be okay, yeah, Sheree. Some are going to hear this and think, you TDP. But hear me out. You only have to do the math to understand that very soon we were $500,000 down.
Yeah, so I actually live in, as I mentioned, in Japan. I actually live in quite a famous place. It's called Fukushima. I think you might have heard it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've lived here for 20 years. I was here when the massive tsunami and earthquake and the resulting nuclear disaster happened.
Oh, my gosh.
Right. So I'm living in one of the most undesirable places on earth. I find myself living in one of the most undesirable places on earth in 2011.
Yeah.
And this was kind of a trigger for me to notice, okay, in the future, if I choose to stay here, I need to make the most of living here, right? Because everyone around you would say, well, you're mad. Why are you staying there?
Yeah.
That would be probably the first question. And my answer to that is, yeah, well, actually, I live in a city called Iwaki City that was not so affected by the radiation. And when we looked at the science and the facts, we could live here very normally, just like you would in Tokyo, almost no difference. Right?
Wow.
Which is very lucky. And you wouldn't know that if you just looked at the media stories about Fukushima. You would just think Fukushima equals a big hole in the ground and don't go there. That's not true. It's at all.
Yeah.
I think it's only 1 or 2% of the actual prefecture, which is a no-go zone these days. It's a massive place. Fukushima is a massive, massive area. So anyway, I find myself living, I just built a brand new house. And I find that my brand new house is in the most undesirable part of the world. And after things, of course, at the start, there was a lot of unknown things. We didn't know if we could go back to our home. We had to evacuate. We had to leave. We didn't know if we could go back. After a while, things settled down. We started to find out, okay, things are going to be okay. They started to get things under control up at the nuclear power station, all those things.
Wow.
But I was of the mind of, we need to leave because surely New Zealand would be better. And I'm from New Zealand. New Zealand is peaceful and all of that. And my husband said, no, come on, let's look at the facts here. You are making a decision based on emotion. And so when we looked at the facts of what our life would be like if we moved to New Zealand versus what it would be like if we stayed here, we realized that there was a lot of hay to still be made here in Fukushima. And if we did move to New Zealand, I probably would just be the same me, but I would be in New Zealand. I wouldn't necessarily be happy. It would be just another place to be the same me. So there's that old saying, wherever you go, there you are.
Right, exactly.
So the moving to New Zealand part wasn't going to be the thing that was going to make me happy.
Right.
And I decided that if I have to stay in Fukushima, I'm going to make the most of this. So once I changed my thinking about living in the most undesirable part of, Japan, of the world,
Right.
things changed. Things changed around me. So just opportunities started to come to me. It's the same city that's always been here, but the way that I look at it is completely different. So that's kind of a challenge I'd love to give to your listeners, is to make a decision to look at where you are right now and decide, what if I just really decided to enjoy where I am right now? What would that look like? And really open your eyes to what you have around you. And when you start to give this kind of positive attention to where you already are, it starts to kind of love you back in a weird way.
Wow.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting. Yeah, I think because you're right. When you don't want to be someplace, or you're angry or frustrated about something, you close yourself off to seeing any potentially good thing about it. You're looking to revalidate the fact that you don't like it. So you focus on everything bad. And even if something's good, you somehow find the bad in it. Whereas I think, like you said, when you've determined that you want to make a go of it in a certain place or situation, you start to see the little bit of positive, even in something that's maybe 95% not as good as it could be.
Exactly. Yeah. And so if I can love Fukushima,
Yeah.
potentially you can love almost anywhere in the world. And I'm using Fukushima as an example because it was just so shocking.
Right.
And
Right,
people
of
can
course.
remember that, right? And the fear around it and all of that. So if I can make a go of it here, but chances are wherever it is your listeners are listening from, there's a chance they can make a go of it there as well.
Yeah, that's so true. And I think that same concept could be applied, whether it be an actual city or a country. It could be applied to a life situation. For example, people who are not happy about the fact that they're working from home. I mean, a lot of people are happy about it, but a lot of people feel very trapped, very stuck. Or the fact that we have travel bans, certainly here in Hong Kong where I am, it's almost impossible to travel because of all the quarantine and everything else. So there are people who are starting to, chomp at the bit, right? Because they haven't been able to get out for such a long time. So I think, yeah, looking at it through your eyes, which I think is such a great way to look at it, and say, well, what's the great thing about being here and not having to travel?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, or from working from home. And so there's frustrations in doing it, of course, but where's like the huge opportunity that I didn't have when I worked out of an office?
Exactly. What am I missing here? What am I not noticing because I'm very busy feeling annoyed about the fact that I have to work from home and my kids are homeschooling and all of these things. Whereas maybe if you'd go back to yourself 2 years ago and you went back in time and you told yourself, hey, you're going to get to stay home. You don't have to go to work every day. And you're going to have all this family time that you've been wishing that you had.
Right.
Your 2 years ago person is going to say, what? That's ridiculous. Yeah, but now you have what potentially you always wanted.
Yeah, funny, right?
Right. A lot of us have always dreamed of working from home and not having to get dressed up and go out to work, but here we are. But now we understand the reality of it, right? This is sort of what it is actually like. So what's your attitude going to be? That's up to you. Yeah. And I completely understand parents with kids at home. I have 2 kids myself, and I know it's not easy, but our attitude is always a choice.
Yeah, I think it brings us back to what you were saying initially, was the fact that before you jump into doing something that you think is your dream, give it a test run. Because, yeah, you're right. A lot of people pre-pandemic were complaining about having to get up and commute and go to work, and you don't get to spend time with your kids and all that. And then the pandemic comes along, and it's almost, the universe or nature's way of saying, give that a try. See what it's like.
Yeah, you got what you wanted.
Yeah, exactly.
And
right.
It was so shocking, though, wasn't it? It was just one day you're going to work, and the next day everybody's at home, and suddenly everything's different than it's ever been. So it wasn't gradual at all. And that was probably what was so stressful for people, was there was just no transition time. So when you're building your dream life, you can give yourself that transition time, and it may be over a period of years that it happens. And that's probably a good thing. Yeah. But it's great to be able to look back and say, wow, I was there, but now I'm here. So I'd really recommend that people document this in a journal.
Oh, that's
if you have a
interesting.
journal or a blog, or I've done it through a podcast, having my own podcast. I can go back to 4 years ago and listen to me talking about, oh, this is what I'm going to do. And I'm taking my children to New Zealand for the summer. And even something that's very obvious, that was a huge step for me at the time. But now when I look back, I was like, oh gosh, I can't believe I had so much trouble doing that one thing. And I
Right.
thought it was going to be such a drama, and it wasn't. It's now, no, of course we can't travel, but
Yeah.
if I was going to be traveling again, it's a no-brainer. Of course, we're going to New Zealand for the summer and that sort of thing. So yeah, definitely give yourself that chance to see how far you've come, how much closer you're getting to this dream life that you've been imagining.
Yeah, I think that's such a great advice. And I think that, yeah, people need to give themselves room to experiment. And I think, as you were saying earlier, people tend to hold off. They feel that they can't make any movement forward on something until it's that magical time, like you said, when the kids graduate school, when I retire, when I hit a certain financial goal or whatever. And I think you're so right in pointing out that you can do it in micro steps.
Yeah, preferably do it in micro steps and start now. And that your future self in 2 years will be very, very thankful that you did start now.
Yeah, for sure. I think another thing that you mentioned, which is really interesting, moving a little bit away from the creating your dream life, is you also mentioned the power of community. From your point of view, what are the key benefits of community, particularly, I think, to bring out for people who are career and working people who tend to be very focused on the demands of their job, and oftentimes their jobs are very demanding. And we tend to be more focused on what we have to do and not thinking about community, like the word community barely even, comes onto the radar.
Yeah. So in my experience, obviously, as I mentioned, I live in Japan, and where I live is not Tokyo. Okay.
Right.
So it's a kind of, I'll call it a rural city. And I woke up one day and I realized I had no community. And that was because people like myself come and go from Japan. And if you're an expat somewhere, you'll know this, like there's just a constant sort of turnover of people around you. And when you don't have your community, then yeah, you can feel very isolated. And I think isolation is one of the biggest problems that is happening in the world right now, and particularly with what's going on with COVID, people being in lockdowns, people not being able to go into their offices to work. There's no water cooler talk. There's no after work drinks. There's where people would have working people got their community from these kinds of activities, perhaps. Maybe it was visiting the gym and chatting with the person that comes to the gym. That's how they got their community, potentially, if they didn't have time for other ways. Yeah. So yeah, these days, how are you going to find your community in a post-COVID world? Potentially, we're not going back to working in offices. Potentially, you are not going to be living the life you were living 2 years ago. Yeah. Yeah. So that would be like, everybody's different. I'm actually an introvert. You might not think so from the way I'm talking to you on this podcast today. You would not guess, right? So I'm an introvert, and I get energy from being alone, but I don't need to be alone all the time. And it doesn't mean I don't like people. It just means that I need to balance how much community, how much being around other people do I need compared to an extroverted person. And so everybody has different needs, right? So if you're an extroverted person, this has probably been particularly hard on you recently with COVID, right? Not being able to go out and see people, and being potentially, if you live alone, being alone all day at home. And I just know so many people who have been very, very stressed because they cannot go out of their house, and they live alone, and they're extroverted, and they're just crying out for community. So yeah, my challenge would be to listeners as well is, what do you need? What do you need as an extrovert, an introvert, an introverted extrovert? What level of community do you need? And then go and find that community. Maybe it's in the form of a podcast, which is what I was looking for back a few years ago here in Japan. Was I had no community, and I thought there must be some other women like me in Japan who are married to Japanese men, don't live in Tokyo, never see other foreigners on a day-to-day basis. Where surely there's a podcast I can listen to. No, there wasn't. So I created it myself.
Wow.
And so it might come to the fact that you have to create this community yourself if there's something that you need. So not everybody's community is the same. What they need from a community is what I would say. And don't feel like you have to be the extrovert. Like a lot of society plays to the extrovert. Yeah. If you're not this extroverted character, there's something wrong with you, but it's not true. Yeah. So some of us need a little bit more quiet time, a little bit downtime, a little more alone time. So yeah, what do you need from community? What's missing from your life since COVID came along? The community that disappeared and you didn't quite notice that it was important to you, that maybe water cooler talk was important, or chatting with your gym friend or whatever it is. Yeah. And go and find that in a new way. Maybe it's joining an online workout group or something until we can be face-to-face again, that sort of thing. So that would be, my advice around community. And if you can't find it, build it.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point, because you're right. People, I think, one of the benefits of COVID is that it's opened up opportunities that nobody had thought of before. And I think one of them is the ability to have community other than the networking and face-to-face, or, no, I shouldn't say face-to-face. That's not a good way to put it. But I think that previous to COVID, people thought of socializing as either going to a party or going to a networking event. And like you said, for people who are extroverts, wow, that's just their milieu. But for people who are introverts, they tend to shy away from that because it's a more challenging and, as you pointed, a draining situation. So
exactly, nightmare, complete nightmare.
Yeah, exactly. They don't know what to do. They don't know how to talk to people. Whereas I think that since the pandemic, we've seen, like you said, there's been other things that have come up because people couldn't do face-to-face. So there's been online communities, whether it be around working out, as you pointed to earlier, or even just chat groups or work-related groups. So it's given people so many opportunities to get involved in a way that's comfortable for them.
Exactly. Yes. And one good thing to remember, though, is that online does not replace face-to-face. And I've been working online for many years, for 10 years. So working online is nothing new to me. Whereas working online for many people has become more real in the last 2 years. Yes. And so one thing I did notice very quickly was that, online does not replace face-to-face. It is never going to be the same as being face-to-face. You're never going to get that same connection as you would. It's quite good. It's maybe 80% there. But if you're thinking, this is not quite doing it for me, that will be why. You do still need some face-to-face. And I hope that soon things will go back to normal and we'll be able to do more of that sort of thing as well. And for someone like me who lives outside of Tokyo, this has been fantastic that now I can join anything that's going on here in Japan. Like a lot of the great meetings and networking events were held in person in Tokyo and I couldn't get to them. And now I can join anything. And so for me personally, it's been amazing. But I know for a lot of people, it has been a real struggle. So here's hoping to a really nice balance coming in the future, I feel, between both.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, to have the balance, to be able to say, I can be part of a much wider community because I don't have to travel, right? It doesn't matter if it's not in my geographic location. But at the same time, you do need to spend some time with people, with real people, face to face.
Yeah.
Otherwise, living in a totally virtual world becomes a bit strange. What are some of the things that you feel people might either misunderstand or overlook about being part of a community?
I think that being a leader is not as hard as it looks of a community. So as I mentioned before, if you're not finding what you're looking for and go build it, that to become a leader of a community can actually be really rewarding. So I hope that people will take that opportunity to start something and be not aware, but to know that even something small can have an amazingly huge impact far beyond what you imagine. So even if starts with one person, this community or whatever it is, starts with one person, do not underestimate the effect that could have for that one person. And then it might be that there's a ripple effect that affects 2, 3, 4, 5 people. It can be just amazing. And I see this a lot with podcasts, actually. So this podcast that you have, I bet you never imagined the ripple effects from this podcast, things that are happening, right? People who contact you and say, I love it, or opportunities that come to you, or just really random things. And I see this a lot with the other clients that I work with in their podcasts. When they start that, they think it's all about the podcasting. I'm like, no. It's about the community that's going to come from this podcast. And that is where the value is. So I'm not saying you have to start a podcast, but I'm just saying if this community that you potentially start could become something that you never imagined, something really valuable.
Yeah, that's very true. Certainly when I started this podcast, I never imagined. I mean, it's downloaded now in 81 different countries, and I'm just staggered. So you're right. It is a ripple effect. And I think that people are looking for other people to be able to take a lead.
Yeah, people are always looking for somebody else to start something. And it doesn't have to be hard. Yeah. And it can be simple, but hugely valuable to everybody. So just start it. Yeah, just get going. Do that experiment that we've been talking about with your dream life. This can totally bring that over to this community idea as well. And the happiness that comes from it. Did you know that the replication rate of happiness is far greater than the replication rate of the COVID virus?
Oh, that's interesting. Could you talk about that a little bit?
So I'm not an expert.
Wow.
So if you decide to go out and do one thing that makes somebody else happy, or something nice that makes somebody else happy, then that is going to have a ripple effect on and on and on. It's far greater than you could imagine from just that one thing that you did, one nice thing.
That's so interesting because I think particularly at this juncture in time when we are seeing so much tension worldwide. Yes, part of it's the pandemic, which has gotten everybody shaken up, and I don't blame them. I mean, it's been a huge worldwide crisis. But just in general, people are feeling tense. They're feeling stressed. There's a lot of agitation. And yeah, if everybody just went out and made one other person happy, imagine the effect. Yeah, I think that's something that it's time people started to shift the focus a little bit in that direction, even if it's in a very small way.
Yeah, you can always take responsibility for your part in things. Yeah, I feel whatever happens. And having gone, when COVID came along, I sort of thought, well, I'm kind of thankful to have experienced a nuclear disaster in my backyard because I had a bit of practice with the sort of uncertainty and all of the things that comes along with things like that. But yeah, we've built a lot of resilience through this last 2 years. And so now we can not relax, but just know that we're stronger for next time, whatever, because something else will happen, obviously, in the world. We're going to be stronger for next time and better able to deal with whatever is coming. And that's a really nice confidence to have too. And I hope that some of your listeners will notice that in themselves. Oh, okay, whatever happens next, I can handle it. Look what happened just in the last year, and I'm still here. We're still going. So, yeah, just notice the resilience that you've built and really enjoy that.
Yeah, and like you said, take responsibility for your own happiness. Well, Jane, thank you so much for sharing these insights. I think that it's so uplifting to hear what you're doing and your point of view, because most of the narrative that we've been hearing has been so negative. So I think that you reminded us of some of the opportunities that are available to us right now.
Exactly. And if your listeners are thinking, oh, how can I be more like that? Well, the first thing I would do is turn off the news.
Yeah, so true.
Put yourself on a low information diet.
I couldn't agree more. You're absolutely right, honestly.
Yeah, not a no information diet, but a very low information diet. So yeah, unhook yourself from that sort of the drama of the news, which is created to make us feel worried and to want to consume more news and all of that. And so yeah, to avoid being manipulated and feeling stress, low information diet is a really great first step.
And we live really in a fear-based world, which is a pity, because I've read somewhere, well, there's been several books written about it, but the fact that if you actually compare current times, right? Maybe these books were written before the pandemic, but not very much before. And they said compared to so many other times in history, actually we're much safer, we're much better off. Everything is better. And yet people are more scared than ever before. And I say this in the era just before the pandemic, because I believe the pandemic was a very frightening event when it first came on the scene.
Yeah, exactly. And as I mentioned before, living in Fukushima, on the ground here, I know what's happening, right? But then I would read media reports about Fukushima and all the mistakes that were in there. And sometimes I was in the media myself and I was misquoted. And I thought, well, if that's happening with just things that I know about, what else is that happening with that I'm reading as if it's a factual thing? So yeah, it's always good to keep that in mind when you're reading those things, and yeah, you don't let them take over your life too much. And it's very much happier life waiting for you if you do.
Yeah, exactly. You really do take things as until it's written about something where you really know about it firsthand, and then it's shocking, right?
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to be on a seat at the table. If people want to connect with you, how can they find you?
So I'm very active on Instagram. You can find me at Transformations with Jane on Instagram.
Okay,
I'm
great.
also on LinkedIn, Jane Nakata, and on Facebook as Transformations with Jane. And if you like what you heard today, there's plenty more of that over on the Transformations with Jane podcast. We mostly interview women who live in Japan, and there's just an amazing array of women doing amazing things here. So if that's something you'd like to know more about, then definitely have a listen to that as well. And I think you'll really enjoy some of the insights that we have over there.
Well, that would be great. I'm going to put all of those links in the show notes. I certainly would love to further see what you're doing. I think it's very inspiring, and I think there's just so much benefit that people can get from the things that you're doing and some of the ideas that you're pioneering here. So, yes, I thank you again for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's been great.
If you enjoyed this episode of A Seat at the Table, join me each week when I sit down with leading executives, entrepreneurs, educators, and authors who share their insights, experiences, and vision for the future of business. And make sure you visit Spin Expo. From trend information to technical innovation, Spin Expo is the primary exhibition for yarns and knitwear. The fair provides well-edited forums featuring high-quality products that are bursting with creativity. To learn more, go to spinexpo.com. That's www.spinexpo.com. You can also find a link in the show notes for this episode. And don't forget to check out our podcast website, where you can find all of the previous episodes of A Seat at the Table, the show notes, news about our upcoming masterclass series, and lots of other useful information. You can find it at seat.fm. That's www.seat.fm. FM because it's a podcast. Thank you for joining me today. I'm Jane Singer, and I'll see you in the next podcast episode.